Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for part 2 of the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Hey coach, so my strict press has been stuck at 175 to 180 pounds for the last 6 months or so, and this time I've added 20 pounds to my work sets on bench for 245 to 265 for 5, paused, and just hit a 5 plate dip at 207 body weight. I've tried Bulgarian for 3 months and maybe added 5 pounds, currently pressing 3 times a week. 1 max effort day, 2 volume days. I do extra triceps and delt work 2 times a week. J-arm press 135 reps. Skull crushers the way you do, 110 for 8 to 10 reps. Where should I go from here? Thanks, coach. All right. Strict press is tricky. And it sounds like you're a relatively advanced lifter at this point. Again, look at your lifts, right? Pretty respectable bench. More than respectable dip. Right, your overhead press is actually not bad. Right? You're just trying to get to that 200 mark. But a 180 is not bad at all. It really isn't. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Here's what you need to think about. It is very hard to do volume on this press. You're doing 2 volume days every week. I'm going to tell you, you probably need to cut that out. Here's what I'm going to say you probably need to do for a while. You need to work on maybe 1 day of the press every week for a while. Right? In other words, 1 day of actual heavy work, like a max effort day, and then 1 heavy volume day might be the way to go. Stop doing any sort of real rep work other than 3s. Like, what I mean is that maybe have a day to where you build up to a max effort, maybe even a max triple, and then go over and do high volume triples, right? Something like that. And it's fine. If you want to bench first on both of those, go ahead. It's not going to hurt you to do so. So I would cut all your pressing back to twice a week. I think you're probably your overall pressing volume is too much. And I think the press itself is really, really difficult when you do too much volume on it to get stronger. Because the hypertrophy might be there, but you just never recovered. So again, maybe have a max effort bench day and then a volume day and then build to a max triple on the press and then do volume doubles or triples on both on that separate day. So a 2 day a week as far as pressing goes on some concurrent periodization. That's the direction I would personally go, looking at where you're at. And then if you're going to do any real volume, do your volume on the delt and the tricep work, right? Delt and tricep work, and do those on the same days. Like you don't really need to be pressing and doing this stuff more than twice a week at this point in the game for you. I've done the really high frequency pressing, and it runs into problems as far as progression. You do tend to stall. So that's the direction I would go. And don't worry about a lot of volume on the press. You just need to get good at lifting heavy weights on it and let your hypertrophy, more of it at this point in the game, come from the smaller exercises, because you're an advanced lifter now. All right, next question. Hey calendar, how do I best improve press and bench press simultaneously? Upper body is late novice. Bench 110 kilos for 3x5. That's not bad. Press 76 kilograms for 3x5 frequency 3 times a week. Let's kind of feed back into what Tarzan said in the last one. And that's why I picked these 2 questions back to back. Let's feed back into that. Why don't you listen to what I told him? Right, you're at a point to where increasing both of these at the same time, it might be time to specialize a little bit more. Might be time to ease into some periodization, right? It sounds like you've done really good as far as just linear progression like that, doing 3x5 on a 3 times a week frequency. It sounds very similar to my novice 2.0, and that's real good. You're not a novice anymore, all right? You are not a novice. If you're doing those numbers for a 3x5, you, my friend, are no longer a novice. You're an intermediate. It might be time to ease into a 4 day a week upper lower type split. Or that could be, technically you're squatting and pulling on 1 day and all you're pressing on another. Done each twice a week. But it might be time to go over to that 2 day a week rotation. And it might be time to start periodizing. Whether you choose to do some sort of linear block periodization, which I have programs up for, or you choose to do some sort of concurrent periodization, I think that you're at the place in your training to where you're going to benefit from actually training 4 days a week instead of 3. And I think that you will benefit from periodizing it. You're at that point. Congratulations, you're no longer a novice lifter. And unless you periodize it that way, you're not going to improve on both of those at the same time. It's not going to happen anymore. So there's your solution, brother. All right, next question. What would be the difference in gains from someone who bulked on clean foods versus someone who bulked on sweets and sugary treats? Thanks, Jason. I'm glad that you specified the junk food, sweets and sugary treats. So we're dealing with bulking on a lot of refined fructose, refined sugar, right? And that's an important distinction to make. In terms of actual body composition, I mean, assuming calories and stuff are equal, you're not going to see that big of a difference in body composition from it, right? And that's where the people who want to argue this stuff get it wrong. The bros want to argue that, well, you're just going to gain more fat. Well, that's not true. The flexible dieting, let's call them bros too, because that's its own form of bro science, are going to say, no, it's just the macros and calories. That's what's going to determine it. Well, they're both wrong. What's going to happen is going to be a difference in your blood work, your health markers. Now, over a prolonged period of time, if you are bulking on a bunch of junk, you're going to see usually negative change in things like your insulin sensitivity. You're going to see negative things in stuff like your visceral fat, right? Your liver fats, your blood work. That's where you're going to see the difference. Over time, that will affect your recovery. Over time, that will affect your performance. Over time, that will affect your health and ability to train and recover correctly. So in the long term, it's going to make your gains worse. In the short term, you're not going to see a significant difference. If you're going to gain more fat around your organs. And that's kind of the difference of, like I pointed out before in a different Q&A, with me, if you look at my visceral fat on my DEXA scan, even when my body fat was getting relatively high, my visceral fat was low. Why? Because I gained all that weight on cleaner foods. I'm not gaining organ fat. It matters. It matters a lot. But you're looking at long-term outcomes, right? What is it doing in the long term? In the short term, you're not going to see a difference. But how is that going to affect you a year later? Right? That's what we need to be looking at in terms of food quality. It's not in the short term. In the short term, literally macros and calories are all that's going to matter for a few months, like over, say, a 6-month period. But a year or two down the road, that's when you're going to have issues from it, because you're going to have a different insulin sensitivity. You're going to have different blood work. You're going to have different adiposity around your organs. So that's what you've got to factor in. That's what you have to think about. So no, it's not good to do it that way. All right, next question and last question of the week. Hey, Jason, what do you think of late novices using a weightlifting belt to achieve intermediate strength standards faster? Some coaches say if a novice knows how to brace properly, they should use it to get stronger. I've softened on this, and I think people need to remember I went through a phase where I did only beltless training and generally promoted it. I have, in general, promoted beltless training always for novice lifters, right? And I still do, and I've always made that clear. But I think when people look back at the fact that I didn't wear a belt for a while, they forget that I competed in a belt. They forget that I did plenty of squatting in a belt. Plenty of squatting in a belt for years on camera before that. But I did beltless phases also. So let's come over to the point. If you have built enough of a strength base and you've got a strong core and you know how to brace and you've kind of got near the end of the novice phase, I don't have a problem with you putting a belt on. I don't think it's a bad thing if you learn how to use the belt, if you learn how to brace. Now, I will put in the added caveat. If you are ready for a belt, you also need to be doing extra core work. All right, that's kind of one of the big differences. I will say a lot of people who are training beltless, fine, you can get away with not doing core work. Once you go to a belt, I'm going to say you are at a point to where you need to be doing extra ab work. So as long as you're going to add supplemental ab work in, I don't have a problem once you've learned how to brace and you've built a beltless strength base. I don't have any problem with a lifter wearing a belt for all their big compounds. Your squat, your bench, your deadlift, your press, right? I don't have a problem with any of that. Even your incline bench, right? That's fine. because it does help you with neuromuscular efficiency. In other words, it does help you recruit a few more muscle fibers once you learn to brace against that belt. That matters for stimulation and getting quality reps in. It does matter. So it becomes a valuable tool at that point. But that's after you've learned how to brace and learned how to use your core and your abs and your abdominal wall without a belt first. And don't get a stupid gym bro belt, get a real belt. In other words, if you're not getting a proper belt that is the proper thickness all the way around, a perfect circle, doesn't taper down, not running a taper belt, that either has a lever or actual prongs that buckle in, if you're not going to get a real belt, don't bother. Don't bother. But if you've learned how to brace, you've built your beltless strength up already, and you're willing to get a proper belt, then I think it's perfectly reasonable. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.